Hello everybody and welcome to the presser reaction. Erik ten Hag has been speaking ahead of the Leicester game on Sunday after a very good result at Camp Nou yesterday, but games are right around the corner and Erik ten Hag is speaking about it. It was the embargoed bit of the press conference yesterday after the Barcelona game. This does tend to happen after we have European games at midweek, but some really good stuff coming out from ten Hag, stuff about the new ownership, which I think is really important for Erik ten Hag to be speaking about, thinking about maybe potentially a title race as well. Erik ten Hag speaking about what he thinks of Manchester United and what they can achieve, and loads of other stuff to get into as well, and also got a few updates on Barcelona players who might be out for the following leg. So we've got a lot to get into. So good afternoon everybody and welcome to the show. A very interesting show last night on the fan forum if any of you were there, and also a great result for Manchester United against Barcelona. I think if you would have offered me a draw before that game I would have took it very comfortably, but obviously watching the game we maybe could have won it, and I think Erik ten Hag sees it that way as well. But yeah, let's get into some stuff. So first of all, I just want to talk about who's out for the Barcelona game next week. I know this isn't about Leicester, but I just wanted to tell everyone that Pedri is out for a month for Barcelona with a hamstring injury. Gavi is suspended and Busquets may or may not be back. The injury is still they're not sure whether he'll be back or not. So that's brilliant news for Manchester United. They're going to have to play probably Sergio Roberto in the midfield again, who's obviously a midfielder and a fullback. So that's great news for Man United when you're taking the game to Old Trafford. To have some of their better players out of the game is good for us. Obviously, I don't wish injury on a player, but it helps us getting the result. Anyway, we'll get into some quotes on Erik ten Hag, and he's been speaking about the ownership of Manchester United and what he thinks of the ownership and his communication with the club. And he said, "I will say from the start, yes, they have informed me on how the process is going, but as I made out, I am focused on the football and focused on other departments of the club." So Erik ten Hag has been told about what's happening with the ownership. He's been told what is going to happen, what the process is happening, and how up to date that things are progressing with the ownership. Obviously, we're only getting told stuff that's being leaked out to the press. So Mike Keegan is doing a brilliant job on reporting on that. We've got some more news that we can update you with as well. And obviously the soft deadline is at 10 p.m. tonight for bidders to get their bids in and get their proposals to Manchester United. So I'm sure there'll be a lot more news coming out. But it's really good that Erik ten Hag has that communication with the club and he knows where this is going and how quickly it's going to be done, because obviously he's going to be thinking ahead to the summer as well and thinking about getting players in. He wants the ownership to be done. So I thought it was quite a good answer from Erik ten Hag, but also it was quite a positive one, I thought. The fact that he knows what's going on and that he's focused on the football, he still seems to be positive, is good. And we actually have an update in from Rob Harris at Sky News saying that MUFC are expected to have a new owner by Easter. That again is really good news for Manchester United. I don't think it will be done by Easter personally, because I just don't understand how it could be done that quickly. But apparently Qatar think with the bid that they have and the proposal that they've put together, this could get done very quickly. I think 6 weeks was the reported time that Qatar thinks that this could possibly be done. Never seen anything quick go ahead with Manchester United, but I mean, if the Glazers are getting the money they want, I'm sure that they'll be happy to do the sale. So we'll have to see how that progresses. But it is looking like it is leaning towards Qatar. We'll discuss that a little bit. I know there's been a lot of shows on this subject, a lot of ink spilled on it, but updates just keep coming out, and this is a big topic for Manchester United and one that we can discuss as well. A lot of De Gea comments. Bring them in. Do you know, everyone's entitled to an opinion. You're entitled to yours and I'm entitled to mine. So if you have an opinion on that, you're entitled to put it in the chat. I welcome it. I welcome different viewpoints. You know, it's a channel where we accept all opinions and viewpoints from different people as well. And speaking about the Qatar and the bids that could be put in, it is rumoured that the bid for Sir Jim is going to go in at 4 billion plus incentives, and Qatar are going to initially going to bid 5 billion, and apparently there is an Arab fund also potentially maybe planning to make a bid that is a lot more private than what Qatar and Sir Jim are being about this subject. Honestly, I think we'll know a lot more obviously after the deadline, and tomorrow morning is going to be massive on what's going to happen. Usually you don't get too much news on a Saturday, but I think there's got to be some news coming out about this tomorrow morning, and I think it's just exciting times that the club could be sold. But also there's a lot of people that are on different sides of the fence on whether they want Sir Jim Ratcliffe or they want Qatar owners, and I'm one of them. I'm not really in either 100% on either party, to be honest with you. I'm a little bit in the middle because I don't know enough, I feel like, at this point to make a full-gone conclusion, but I'll get into what I do think about that. Personally, for me, I mean, Luckhurst did actually do an article about this. I don't know if anyone's seen it. He did like a kind of opinion piece, and he said that Manchester United are obviously coming close to 6 years without a trophy. Erik ten Hag is doing really well now, and what has happened with Manchester City and Newcastle, obviously Newcastle competing in potentially the Champions League. They're in a Champions League spot after 16 months of their state ownership, and Manchester City, we know what happened with them with their state ownership. It does improve success. The amount of wealth that they can put into it massively improves success, but at the same time, people uncomfortable with sports washing, people uncomfortable with maybe the morals of these state funds that are going to be owning Manchester United, and that's a question that, again, everyone has an opinion, everyone can get into themselves on what they're comfortable with and what they want for the club. But before we kind of delve into that a little bit, I do want to talk about Erik ten Hag and the stuff he's saying ahead of the Leicester game, because this is a press conference reaction ahead of the Leicester City game, and he says he's really enjoying the moment, the togetherness, and it's enjoyable work to him. He's focusing on games. We have 4 leagues, so the owners of the club will have to take decisions. The effort's in the process, but it's not up to us. So again, he's saying he's focusing on the football. The owners will take care of who's going to buy the club, but he's focusing on the football right now, and he's really enjoying fighting on all 4 fronts for all 4 leagues. And again, he talks a little bit more about the sale, saying we're following it because it's our club and we're committed. We're focusing on football, our training, our way of playing, our games, and that's what we're focusing on. So again, speaking about focusing on the football, the same sort of thing, but we're following it because it's our club and we're committed. Of course, he's going to be following this Erik ten Hag. This is going to be basically it is going to be his boss when they come in. The owners are going to be the boss of Erik ten Hag. He's the manager and they own the football club. And they're also going to provide money for him to invest into this team. They're going to potentially provide a sporting director that's going to help him target opportunities in the transfer market. It's going to be a massive helping hand to Erik ten Hag. I mean, I've spoken about it so many times. But if he can do this in 7 months with limited funds, I mean, our January transfer window was 2 loans. And yeah, Weghorst and Sabitzer are decent players, but at the end of the day, looking at everyone around us, what they're doing, it was 2 loans. And he's still managing to compete in all 4 competitions at a really high level. I mean, if you look at what we did at Camp Nou yesterday, our full bench was basically academy players, and obviously you had Maguire, Lindelof and Dalot on there, but they're not going to have too much impact. The rest was pure academy players and youth players that are young talent that is not ready really to play at Camp Nou for Manchester United. And look at Barcelona's bench, they had loads of players that have played in multiple different leagues, played in international competitions, and he plays Wout Weghorst as a 10 and still goes toe-to-toe with Barcelona on their stomping ground, which they've not lost a game since October. They've not lost in 16 league games. This guy is doing incredible things. I think Kev called him the bald wizard yesterday. Imagine what he could do with some money injected into the club, and someone who's willing to kind of move the club to the next level and be fully focused on the sporting ambition and winning trophies and winning titles. I think it would be an unbelievable opportunity for Ten Hag to take Man United to the next level. And obviously a new owner, hopefully, is going to provide that, depending on who is the new owner. So it'll be interesting, and that is why obviously Ten Hag's going to be following it all the way. The players will be following it. The owners who are going to employ them, they're going to be following this, and obviously certain players as well will really care about the club and what direction it's going in. A lot of them will be following it, and rightly so. They probably should be, the same way that we're all following it as well. And he talks about being among title candidates and title contenders, and on this one I just want to ask the chat as well. Chat, do you think that we are title contenders? Maybe we could get a poll on this, because Erik ten Hag was kind of on the fence about it, as he's going to be. He's not going to say that they're not or they are at this point. He's just going to be focused on one game at a time, like most managers are. But I've had a lot of people talk about us potentially being title contenders. I was saying before the City game, before the Arsenal game, before that Palace game, we win all them 3 games that week, we're definitely kind of in that conversation. But there's certain hurdles that we stumbled upon. That free kick at Palace was just unbelievably unlucky. Again, the draw at home to Leeds, there's just been a few times where I thought, we're just not at the level to be competing with Manchester City right now. no, Ten Hag's done an unbelievable job. He's overachieving, in my opinion, with where this squad was at the start of the season. But I just don't think we can compete with Manchester City and what they've got with their bench, their team, how long Pep's kind of been doing this with Manchester City for. I think it's a big, huge ask. Again, the points on the board don't lie. We are only 5 points behind. Obviously, there's a game in hand put in there. And, I mean, you look at the fixtures and I struggle to think where we'd make up the points. But when you're 5 points behind, no matter what, you're in the table, you have got to put yourself in that conversation. But for me personally, I just don't think we are. But I always look back and I think, if that crazy Beckham-style free kick didn't go in at Palace, if only we had Casemiro for the Arsenal game, if only, is worth. And them first 2 games of the season as well. I mean, if we didn't start the season 2 games after we played it, imagine what could have been possible. But at the same time, I think them games were needed. I think it was a huge shift. From that Brentford game to the Liverpool game, it was a huge shift for Eric Ten Hag and that whole team. And we kind of needed that to kickstart our season. And from there, we've just only been going up. And let's see what the poll is saying. Manchester United title contenders, 57% no, 43% yes. So again, it's what I expect. I personally wouldn't say we are right now. I wouldn't, but some people will look at the points on the board, they'll have that positive head on, and they'll think that we could be in with a chance. What I have to say is United 100% have to be ready, and that's what Eric Ten Hag, I think, thinks as well. He says about staying among the title contenders, it demands a lot of energy, high demands and high standards. We know what Eric Ten Hag demands of this squad. He set the bar extremely high when it comes to standards. He'll continue that 100%. And that's why we're winning as many games as we are as well and getting some good results, because he's set them standards so high. I mean, an example of how high the standards are is yesterday after that game in Barcelona, you have Marcus Rashford coming out in an interview and saying how disappointed he is that they didn't win the game. You have Bruno Fernandes, the captain of the team, saying that they shouldn't have drawn that game, they should have won it. And they generally looked, Ten Hag, Rashford and the players looked genuinely disappointed they didn't win that game, because they knew that the opportunity was there to win that game. There was. Man United, with the chance they had, especially at 2-1, I know at the end we were hanging on a bit, but at 2-1, even before that in the first half, there was chances we just simply didn't finish. We had more chances than Barcelona, more clear-cut anyway, and the fact that they're coming away from that disappointed shows where the standards are at, 100%. He also says, next game always has to be better than the previous game, think about game to game, keep the energy on focus. And then when he talks about Manchester City and Arsenal dropping points, he says, if it means, and if it means whether Man United are in a title race, we don't think about that so far. What we have to do is focus, and in April, in the right position, so our thinking can only be on the next game. Brilliant answer, and it's what should be said. Man United have to do everything they can to win every single game going forward, in the Premier League especially, because if Arsenal or Manchester City do drop points and they do slip up, we have to be in the position to be on their backs and chasing them down. We have to be hunting them down. Whether they drop them points or not, we have to be there in and around. We have to keep winning. Eric Ten Hag knows this, and the fact he speaks about April as well, that's always what Sir Alex used to say. He says you've got to be in the right position in April. April is when it's crunch time. Eric Ten Hag knows this. Again, I say he's a top manager who knows what he's talking about. The word April is coming into it, and the same way that Sir Alex used to speak about it, April has got to be when you're in the right position, and he wants Manchester United to be there. And to do that, every game is a must-win game for us at the moment. There's literally no time off. A game every 3 days, 2 games a week, fighting in 4 competitions. They're all must-win games, and this team will be tired, the squad will be tired, we don't have enough rotation, but they're all fighting together, and it's very, very unified, which I find it's great to see. It's great to see. When you're supporting your club, the unity being there, it's great, and I love to see it. And again, he speaks about potentially having a different result in the Barcelona game today, as in yesterday, which is when they played Barcelona. We were the better players, the better team, so the run of games will help us in our process and win the right direction. We will analyse and criticise what went good, what went wrong, and move on. Obviously, it's what Eric Ten Hag says every time. He criticises, he takes the lessons learned from the game and tries to improve the team. It's what any manager would do. And he speaks about returning to the Champions League as well. And he says, we know what to do and we have to do it from game to game. We have to fight to get back into the Champions League. Again, of course, he's gonna fight to get back into the Champions League. It's where Manchester United should be. And then again on the busy schedule, which I think is interesting, because we heard Mikel Arteta, and I think rightly so, complaining about playing on Wednesday night and then having to play at 12:30 on a Saturday. It is a very, very short turnaround. At the same time, you're not having to travel because you're in the UK. We're actually having to travel back from Barcelona and then play Leicester at home. And on that, actually, Eric Ten Hag, to prioritise recovery, actually made the Manchester United team fly home after the game last night. They flew home after the game, straight back into Manchester, prioritising recovery, rest and recovery for the Leicester game. This guy's not messing about. He's got everything planned out to perfection. Remember when we were in talks to get Eric Ten Hag, when it was kind of the Poch and Eric Ten Hag debate and who would be manager? It was interesting looking at Steve McLaren and what he had to say about Ten Hag. And he said he's never worked with anyone that is so precise and detailed. He said when he came into training at the start of the pre-season with Ajax, he had a full plan put together from when the drink breaks were going to be for the whole of pre-season. He even had the drinks breaks planned out. Eric Ten Hag will be saying one game at a time, but we've seen how much of an amazing planner he is and how strict and kind of he creates his schedule that works perfectly. We've seen him when he introduced Shaw as a left-sided centre-back months before this game came around, planning for it because he knew he didn't have Martinez. We've seen him test out players in different positions and it worked. We've seen him rotate the squad and play Maguire in certain games to rest Varane to ensure he doesn't get injured. He has them mapped out on the calendar. 100% now, Eric Ten Hag's got games that he's got down for Maguire to play to rest Varane so he doesn't get injured. He's plans everything. He's so meticulous and it's working brilliantly for Manchester United. And the plan would have been to get the flight home from Barcelona. He's got a game on Sunday he has to win. I respect it highly. And again, it's just great to have a manager that is so good and knows what he's doing 100%. And he's got so much potential. I'm so glad that we have him as our manager. I just have to say that I was one of the people kind of wanting Ten Hag and praising Ten Hag and kind of saying I massively want us to get Ten Hag over the other shouts. I brought him up very early when the managers were being talked about, and to have him in the club, he's doing everything exactly what I thought he would do, and actually even further than what I thought so early on. He's exceeding expectation, and I'm excited for him to be Manchester United manager, especially with new owners potentially being on the way. Just having a little look at the title contender vote. Yeah, 55% are still saying no, so a lot of people that are actually being realistic, I feel like, in the chat as well. But yeah, moving on to the schedule, I just kind of got a little bit sidetracked then. On the schedule, he talks about the players in the squad like it. They want to play big games and they know as a team and as an individual, you have to grow in such games. This is a brilliant answer. It's a positive answer. He's not complaining about the run of games. He's got a very thin squad, Ten Hag, as well. You looked at our bench last night, you only have to look at the bench to see that. He's got a very thin squad. I'm not hearing any excuses coming from him. I'm just not hearing them. He's saying they have to relish the big games, they have to live up to him. He knows the players know what they have to do, they love the big games and that they just want to be playing. I love that from Ten Hag because often as well, what you put out there, your players will receive, and I'm a big believer in like what energy you put out kind of goes back into everyone who's around you, and especially if you're the coach. I honestly think if you have a manager sitting there slating the amount of games you have to play, there's not enough rotation, that the players will start to feel that, and that has a negative effect on their mindset when it comes to going into games every few days, and they'll feel that. Eric Ten Hag putting out there that they relish big games, this is what we have to do as a big club, and we bring it on and we have to fight. I think that, again, instills the right mentality into these players. At the end of the day, you are playing for Manchester United. You are at the highest point in football, really, playing in Manchester United and playing this amount of games, fighting in 4 leagues. If you want to win stuff, this is what you have to do, and I like that attitude from Ten Hag. I really, really do. And Manesh Patel says Ten Hag loves playing games, playing more games opposed to the others in our league. Yeah, there is some people that complain a lot. certain teams complain a lot, and that's the way it is. I mean, Arteta was complaining again about the 12:30 kickoff. I have to say, I do think that is a very, very tight turnaround, and I understand where he's coming from. But again, sometimes you just got to get on with these things and move forward. And he said about returning to the Champions League as well, that they're going in the right direction. We have to fight for it. There are two ways. One is the Europa League and the other is the Premier League. This little quote tells me, because you have to read into stuff with Erik ten Hag sometimes, he's massively focused on the Premier League and ensuring we get top four and potentially even more, who knows. But also he's seen the Europa League as one of them routes as well, and he wants to win that trophy. He's going to go fully out for this Europa League. I know we have a Carabao Cup final next Sunday after that Barcelona game at home, which we're going to have to fight on all fronts for again. And it is a short turnaround, but he's planning to fight for each and everything. He's not going to compromise any competition, and he's certainly not going to compromise the Europa League on this. And again, we have got such an important run of fixtures coming up. We've got Leicester, we've got Barcelona, we've got Newcastle in the Carabao Cup, and then we move on to Liverpool in the league at Anfield. Every single game is a must-win, especially if you want to carry on in all of these competitions and carry on at the top of our game. And Erik ten Hag talks about this. He says, we are in a rhythm. We have been in this rhythm for many weeks, so our players are doing very well in their rhythm, their sleep, their recovery, their food. They'll be ready for Sunday, definitely. Again, Ten Hag, no excuses. We'll be ready. Everything's going to plan, the recovery, the food, the sleep. And Erik ten Hag is clearly very, very on top of this. We know successful managers are. We know this. What it is with Erik ten Hag is meticulous. He won't accept anything but the highest standard, and he expects his expectations to be met week in, week out. We've seen it with how he's transformed certain players this season. And I always say, top coaches have these expectations and set these expectations so high. I mean, look at Pep Guardiola, the best manager I'd say in the world over the last at least 5 years, been the best manager in the world. And you look at him and the way he came into Manchester City and introduced all of these different processes for each players, the way that he called Calvin Phillips out for not staying fit enough while he was in Qatar and gaining weight even. The expectations are high when you're an elite coach and you expect that of your players. And Erik ten Hag clearly has got this very, very tight and got a very tight ship running, which is more than what you can say is what's happened in the past. And you see the reflection on the results in the pitch. You see the reflection in the attitude of the players. You see the reflection of the confidence of the players. You see the reflection of the fitness. I mean, Marcus Rashford last night, he just played a game a couple of days ago. He plays another 90 minutes. He's running constantly. And he's not only just running constantly, he's making brilliant runs. His positional sense was amazing. And our counter-press as a team was really, really effective at times. That takes a lot of energy out of you, especially when you've got a game on Sunday. Erik ten Hag still goes and plays that way of football because he knows it's the best way to go out there and win. It worked. And the whole team worked really, really hard. Bruno, again, this guy hasn't had a day off in months. I mean, his fitness is outstanding, honestly. And again, Ten Hag to be keeping that up and keeping that level throughout the whole team, is credit to him as well. Super chat in from De Gea fan United 10 for thank you for your super chat. It doesn't say anything. Maybe you forgot to put your comment in there, but if you're a De Gea fan, I assume you wanted to put a comment in there for me, which is fine. And we've got a comment from, oh yeah, here we go, De Gea fan United 10. Win the next match and Liverpool, and then we are, and then it doesn't say anything else. But every game is a must-win game, 100%. So that's what we've got to do. That's what we've got to do. But Erik ten Hag there speaking really, really positively. Was he annoyed about what happened at Barcelona with the ref? Yes, that was done in the post-match press conference regarding the Barcelona game. This is the pre-match for Leicester, and he didn't really speak too much about Leicester. I think it's because it is one of the embargoed press conferences after the European games. So you don't usually get as much information, but for an embargoed press conference, I thought he spoke really, really well, actually. And yeah, the embargoes obviously are always a little bit less time as well. So the answers we got, I thought, were great. And again, I just want to reinstate the fact that Ten Hag goes to the Camp Nou, has a bench of academy players, has Wout Weghorst playing number 10 role, has a referee that doesn't know how to referee the game and was very, very biased towards Barcelona. Yes, they didn't get a penalty in the final minute, but the whole game, everything went Barcelona's way, everything. They should have had a red card. And I've watched that red card back so many times, and it is a red card, it's a blatant red card. Ten Hag was fuming with it. He still manages to go toe-to-toe with them, create more chances, and get a 2-2 draw that potentially should have been maybe a 3-1 win if certain things had gone in a different way. So all credit to Ten Hag as well, 100% on that. But lastly, just before we kind of wrap up the show, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the new ownership, and we touched on it a little bit at the start of the show, but I wanted to get across to you Erik ten Hag's quotes and what he's been saying. But I did want to touch on the ownership, because I know Mark spoke about it this morning. I was watching that show, and he spoke about how many people maybe want Qatar owners and how many people want Sir Jim, and he doesn't think maybe the coverage is being put across correctly in the media, and especially on our show. I know the vote was a landslide towards Qatar owners. On Twitter, it seems like, I know The Athletic did an article where it was a landslide towards Sir Jim. So there is a lot of different opinions floating about. And I just wanted to kind of speak about it. It seems like Qatar is going to be the new owners. All bits of news coming out is going towards Qatar. I don't want to just kind of regurgitate what was said on the morning show, because I know kind of a lot of news was covered then, but we have had them updates about Qatar wanting to get this done within 6 weeks, and that there could be new owners by Easter, and how quick it could move, which is brilliant for the club, and again, like, brilliant for Erik ten Hag, what I said earlier on. But it does seem like it is heading Qatar's way, and I just wanted to talk about that, because I know a lot of people have different opinions on this, talk about the sports washing side of it, but also talk about how good it would be for the club. And honestly, I just wanted to say my opinion on this, and my opinion is, with Qatar ownership, I have little doubt that we will be competing at the highest level in European football and in the Premier League while they are owners. They are going to invest money. We will have a rejuvenated stadium or a new stadium. They'll invest into Manchester. The money will be there, and it'll be there quickly for Erik ten Hag to use. And unfortunately, in the times we're in, these sort of state wealth funds tend to be the ones that reach that high level of success, because money does equal success a lot of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time it does happen. So in that sense, we don't need Qatar owners. Manchester United are very self-sufficient. We could still, if an owner comes in and runs this club well and invests the right amount of money and obviously allows it to self-sustain itself, Manchester United could still compete at a very, very, very high level. We've done it previously, but times are changing, things are adapting, and this is the way it's going. State ownerships are becoming a bigger thing in football. You've got PSG, you've got Manchester City, and you've obviously got Saudi Arabia with Newcastle. And you just look at how they've turned things around. You look at how successful City have been, and you look at where Newcastle are just within 16 months. But then you also look at Man City and you see the fines that they're getting, and well, the allegations, over 100 allegations. And you think, is that what comes with it? I don't think Manchester United will ever be in that position, just because the amount of money Manchester United make was so much different to City in that. I don't think we'll ever kind of come across the financial fair play route. Manchester United, I just think, will make too much money for that to be a factor. And I'm not saying it happens with it's not going to happen with every state ownership, that there is going to be financial fair play issues. The sports washing issue I can understand, because do I agree with stuff that happened in Saudi Arabia and their owners of Newcastle? Absolutely not. I'm totally against it. Do I agree with many of the morals of the Qatari people, not the Qatari people, of the what kind of comes with the Qatar ownership? No, I don't. But again, are they going to make Manchester United better? I don't know how to say it. Are they going to make Manchester United compete at a higher level? And is the footballing decision probably best to go their way? If it comes down purely to a footballing position, they are going to take Manchester United to the top with the amount of money that they can invest. I do have to say that. They would. But there are still things I am slightly uncomfortable with that I'm sure a lot of you would be uncomfortable with as well. But you've got to take into consideration nothing is going to be perfect, and you've got to think what's best for the club. My prime thing that I want is, I just want Manchester United to be run well, and I want us to be run as a football club that wants to win trophies and wants to play the best possible football on the pitch. And whoever can bring that, I welcome them. But again, I'm not going to just be that person that's like, yes, give me the oil money, get Qatar in, they can win us trophies, yes, yes, yes. Because I do look at it, and I have thought about it over the last few days, I don't agree with sports washing. I don't, and there are a few questionable things. So sometimes you just got to look at the pros and cons of things and look at it more deeply and have your own opinion, and I encourage you all to have that. But then again, when it comes to Sir Jim, just to kind of bring him back into the equation of it, is he going to have to use loans to get Manchester United? Is he going to be able to invest money as quickly as Qatar owners? Is he going to be able to put into Manchester United what is required into the stadium, into the training ground, into the city of Manchester, into investments when it comes to the team, into the players on the pitch? Is he going to be able to do that as quickly as what we'd like? Or is it going to be bank loans again, and we're going to have to take our time with this? I don't want to put anything on Sir Jim because he might have a plan. I don't know what he's planning to do. But when I look at where the money's coming from, he's not going to be able to influx it as much as Qatar. He's just not going to be. And again, I don't want to say he's going to run the club the same way as he's run Nice, but I know Nice fans aren't too fond of the way he runs Nice and the ownership there. So they're things you have to take into consideration. So, and of course, he's from Manchester and he is a boyhood Manchester United fan. You would think he wants the interest of Manchester, the best interest of Manchester United is at heart, and he is going to run the club in the way of sort of a fan as well. But at the end of the day, it is business, and his business will be investing a lot of money into this. So I don't know, there's a lot of different scopes that you've got to look into, and we'll know a lot more about this in the coming weeks, and especially after the bids go in at 10 p.m. tonight is the deadline. And a few people asking what sports washing is. So I just want to be clear on what sports washing is. Sports washing is when sports are used by a state or non-state, and they're basically used to launder the reputation of that state or company or whoever it is. It's when basically sports are used to launder the reputation. So, for example, a lot of people know what happened with Saudi Arabia in the political stance on that. Some would say they are sport washing. Well, they are sports washing through Newcastle to kind of brighten their reputation in certain aspects. So that's what sports washing is. But it depends what side of the fence you sit on this. I want Manchester United to win trophies. I want us to be successful on the pitch. I want Eric Ten Hag to have a war chest in the summer to spend with. Of course I do. I want Man United to keep getting better players and keep improving and keep winning on the pitch. I want that 100%, but you've got to look at all sides of the coin and kind of make an opinion on this, and I'm sure we'll know more about it as things progress. But thank you everyone for getting your chats in as well and getting your opinions in the chat. It's all about opinions and seeing what everybody else thinks and kind of getting involved with the debate. And thank you for getting involved in the poll as well. The poll did end at no, 54%, and yes, 46% for whether United are title contenders. So we'll see where we are in April, as the wise words of Eric Ten Hag says. But right now, I just think Manchester City are too strong. I really do. And I think Gary Neville was right as well, what he said about Arsenal. He got absolutely rinsed on Twitter for it. He did, by a lot of Arsenal fans, but he was right. Manchester City they're just too strong right now. They're just too strong. And why are they so strong? Maybe it's because of the ownership that they've had that has been pumping money into them. But then again, you can say they've potentially been cheating, which it does look that way. So there's so many different kind of political points that you can get into on this subject and it can be talked about for a long time. I'm sure there'll be more shows talking about this as it goes on. Super chat in from SK saying, we are always thinking about don't be involved with people and don't agree with people you don't agree with. But like any relationship, you have to be in it to influence it. Don't underestimate the change that can come from us being involved for the change. An interesting take there from SK, quite a positive one as well. And as I said, everyone's going to have a different opinion on this, and you have to take your own opinion into this. There's been a lot of opinions flying around, and it's just what you would prefer. But at the end of the day, we won't have a choice. It will only be down to the Glazers, and more news will be coming out about this very, very quickly. So keep your eyes peeled. Keep your eyes peeled on the shows that we will be doing as well for you. But thank you everyone for watching the show and getting involved. Make sure you hit a like, make sure you subscribe, and comment down below what you think of the ownership situation. I'd like to read that. I'd like to read what people are thinking about this. And we'll see you on the next one.